People walk through our doors all the time. Give me the answers. Tell me the right way to do
Right.
this. Make it stop. The pain is so intense. They just want it to stop.
Yes.
But when you get in that setting of 12 to 15 people, incredibly vulnerable, by the way, it's very hard to do to walk through our doors. And we don't take that lightly. We know that. It's the hardest thing you're going to do. If you can get into this space where you feel safe to talk about those big feelings of, I feel like a failure as a mother because I let my child down, or, whatever the situation is. If you can get into a space where somebody else can acknowledge that with you and you can see the progress, like you can come into a group and you can sob, not be able to speak 1, 2, 3, 4 times in a row, but you can see Joe over here can say, I was there once, but look at me now. Therein lies the healing for these people. That's how we do it. It provides hope.
Hey, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us for another episode of At Home with Emily, a podcast about creating a life you love. I am so glad you're here with us today. It is fall time. It's pumpkin spice for everyone that loves pumpkin spice. Not my favorite, but it's seasonal. We're planning for the holidays. The kids are talking about what they want for Christmas. The Amazon, the new wish book. It used to be the Sears wish book. The Amazon magazine or catalog, whatever it is out. So it's just that time of year, and it's exciting, and it's all the things. But it can also be a hard time of year if you are like many of us and you have experienced loss in your life, which I think pretty much all of us have by a certain point in life. And sometimes when we get to this time of year, there is that excitement, but there's also an empty feeling when you have gone through a loss like that. And so today we have Melanie Blair with us, and Melanie is a counselor and therapist, whatever term you want to use there. And she also works at the Lost and Found Grief Center in town, where they do so much good for so many people who are struggling, not just this time of year, but, always. You guys constantly have new people showing up who have lost a loved one. And sadly, a lot of times it's children that you're working with.
It is.
And so tell us a little bit about what you guys do at Lost and Found.
Sure. So we're a unique resource in our community. We're something that not all communities have. And so I think we're lucky here in the Ozarks to have Lost and Found Grief Center. We serve grieving families. It primarily began serving children, and that has adapted over time, and now we serve adults as well. We have 27 different groups that we offer. That's our primary service, which is therapeutic grief support services, often in the evening times from 6:30 till 8 p.m. And then the secondary service that we offer is individual counseling services, which is a fee-based service. So we're blessed to have continued support, donations, grant dollars that fund us at Lost and Found so that we can provide those therapeutic grief support services to no charge to our families.
Well, when I first contacted you, I was wanting a therapist or a counselor who could come in and who could talk about this season. And I mentioned to you, it would be helpful too if there was someone who had been through this who could share that with families. And you right away said, well, Emily, that's me. And you are a mother. And you're a mother who's been changed forever.
Yes.
Through loss.
Yes. And I attribute sitting across from you and being able to talk about my story, because of Lost and Found. So I started working with Lost and Found as a participant. My husband and I went there after the death of our son, Charlie, in 2018. And at the time when Charlie died, it was recommended to us that we do individual counseling, that we didn't go into the group setting. And we had 5-year-old twins at the time. It was also suggested this isn't the right service for them right now. And the reason being because they were going to be put into a group of other children that had lost a parent and they had lost a sibling. They were scared. They were already fearful. They already were worried about so many things that Dr. Karen Scott just suggested, let's not do that. Let's watch. Let's see how they do. With me being a therapist, she was like, you can kind of watch for some of these things at home. I'll say, being a therapist,
I
really
know.
thought that you
You
would have
had
thought that
tools.
I could have
That
done
you
it.
had tools. Okay, I've got tools. I know what's coming.
Yeah. It wasn't
Totally
me.
different when it hits you.
Yeah. I didn't think about counseling. I didn't think about any of those things. It was
Mhm.
because of my husband contacting Lost and Found that we got started with Lost and Found. And I've always said this, it genuinely saved my life. It is allowed for me to understand grief, to educate other people, to help them, to advocate for them, and to hold space for others. And so it's not a job for me. It's truly a calling. And I believe, don't get me wrong, I'd give anything to have my son back with me.
Yes.
But I feel fortunate enough to be able to have taken that tragedy in my own life and do something good from it. And I think that that's what we help people do at Lost and Found, is figure out what is that meaning making for them out of this horrible, life-altering, life-changing event that they're dealing with.
Charlie was very little.
He was. Yeah, he died on his 9-month birthday. So he was born May 23rd and died February 23rd. So he was a perfectly healthy little boy until he wasn't. And unfortunately, my story, I feel that the medical professionals failed us. And he went misdiagnosed for about 7 days before we were finally airlifted to St. Louis Children's Hospital in St. Louis, where they finally did a spinal on him and learned that he had bacterial meningitis. So by the time that we were airlifted, he had already had multiple strokes. Didn't even know an infant could have a stroke.
Yeah.
And ultimately, that's what took his life, was misdiagnosis, untreated meningitis for over 7 days that caused a lot of other horrible things.
And it makes you feel very helpless as a mother.
Yeah. No, it was devastating. I was in and out of the hospital. I was in and out of the pediatrician's office. I knew he wasn't okay. I didn't know.
Right.
I didn't know what. And I
But
trusted
you
these
knew
people.
to keep pushing, though. And you did keep pushing.
Mm-hmm.
And you did everything that you could do.
That's right. And that's what we help people. That's what my therapist helped me understand. I carried a lot of guilt as a mother.
Yeah.
I think we have one job as a mother, right? It's to, not one. It's keep them
We have
alive.
a million
We have
jobs.
a million, but one of the most important is raising good humans and keeping them alive, right? And so ultimately, when your child dies, you feel like a failure. You feel like I failed him. And Lost and Found helped me understand that I did the best I could do with the information that was given to me at the time, and to help me kind of release myself of those feelings of guilt that I carried for a long time. And still do.
There's something that happens when we become a mom, though, Melanie, where it's every single thing that doesn't go according to plan somehow becomes our fault in our minds. Mm-hmm. I totally feel that way. I mean, even if it's very small things in comparison to the gravity of what you're talking about. A baby that can't or won't nurse, a baby that's not gaining weight. And you leave the pediatrician's office in tears every time.
Yeah.
I mean, yes. I do know that feeling, and it's hard. And I think, too, you're sleep deprived. And having a newborn is hard in any circumstance. Right. But given what you guys went through as a family, it's the hardest of all. And, it's easy for those of us on the outside to look at you and say, you're an amazing mom. We can all see that.
Sure.
It's just simply from looking into your eyes. But when you're going through it, it doesn't feel like that.
Yeah.
I know.
And your living children, your surviving children, right? Then navigating that, watching your people grieve, because nobody does it on the same timeline. Nobody is having the same emotions or feelings around it at the same time frame. That's why grieving as a family unit is so incredibly challenging. And we're fortunate enough at Lost and Found that we can try and serve a whole family unit independently in their own spaces where they can do some of that. Children are protective of parents that have lost their spouse, and helping provide them the language and educating people around grief. I mean, this is a topic that makes the majority of people incredibly uncomfortable with. They don't want to talk about it. And when people aren't approaching you how you feel like they should be when you're grieving, it shifts everything in your life. It changes who you are. It changes relationships. You have to navigate all of those things. And those are called secondary losses that we have from this main loss. Everything around us is changing.
Well, the power of finding someone who understands what you're saying and who understands what you've been through, I think is really the thought behind the group therapy that you do. Because I think when you go through pain in life and you'll never understand, why did I have to go through this? To simply meet someone else who can hear what you're saying and identify is really important.
You've nailed it. I mean, that's it. That's the healing power of these groups. And the majority of our groups are open concept groups, meaning that people can kind of start their journey or end their journey on their timeline, not us telling them.
Mm-hmm. Okay, you've done 5 sessions now. You're good to go.
That's right. It's over. You're done grieving.
Yeah.
No, I mean, we don't get to determine that for people. Don't get me wrong. People walk through our doors all the time. Give me the answers. Tell me the right way to do this. Make it stop. The pain is so intense. They just want it to stop.
Yes.
But when you get in that setting of 12 to 15 people, incredibly vulnerable, by the way, it's very hard to do to walk through our doors. And we don't take that lightly. We know that. It's the hardest thing you're going to do. If you can get into this space where you feel safe to talk about those big feelings of, I feel like a failure as a mother because I let my child down, or, whatever the situation is. If you can get into a space where somebody else can acknowledge that with you and you can see the progress, like you can come into a group and you could sob, not be able to speak 1, 2, 3, 4 times in a row, but you can see Joe over here can say, I was there once, but look at me now. Therein lies the healing for these people. That's how we do it. It provides hope that we're going to be okay, that we can survive this, that we can, it's going to be hard and it's forever, but we still have a life worth living. How do we get there? That's what we do.
And in your case, you had your 5-year-olds that still needed their Uncrustables put in the lunchbox every morning and T-ball games attended and, whatever the case was.
Yeah. And that was hard, managing a schedule. I'll never forget, they were playing T-ball and I messed something up in the calendar and we show up and the game is almost halfway over.
Yeah. I've been there a million times, girl.
And I just started bawling.
I know.
And it wasn't a big deal, right? They weren't mad at me, but they were disappointed that they had missed. They're like, Mom, we missed our game.
I know.
Something so simple like that was so devastating to me because I felt like, what am I doing? I can't manage a calendar right now. I'm not thinking straight. It was just, you're not firing on all cylinders. You're just, the brain fog is real. You have little emotional energy. And I think that that's important for people around you in your life to understand is you just don't have the ability to give the level you were giving at for quite some time. Well,
and something that you and I talked about too is, in what I see from friends in similar pathways is, everybody wants me to be over it. And I don't know when that starts. I don't know if that starts, okay, it's been a couple months. Okay, it's been a year. Maybe it's been a couple of years. I think that, and you don't blame them. You don't want them to go through it, just so that they can understand. But there is a lack of understanding there. And, what would you say to all of those who maybe don't relate as strongly to this because, by God's grace, they haven't been through something like this? How can all of us support our friends who we know have endured a loss, whether it be a few months ago or a few years ago?
Yeah. Keep showing up. Keep asking the questions. Don't make those statements. And one of my kind of coined phrases is well-intended people do and say hurtful things. The majority of our people in our life that are kind of sending this message to us,
they still love you.
They're well-intended people. They care about us, right? They don't want to see us sad. Sometimes we just have to hold the space for the people and let them be sad and acknowledge it. Before this happened to me, I can remember I've had to make some living amends, I call it, but I've had to offer some apologies to people in my life for not fully grasping that this is forever. There is no getting over this. There's no moving on. We can move forward. We can still live a good life. But every day, there isn't a day that goes by that I'm not reminded about him. I don't think about him.
Yeah.
It's not as intense as it was in the early days, right? That it softens with time. But, to speak their name, to offer support, to keep checking in on someone. And if they get upset, that's okay. You're not doing that. You as the person asking the question are not the one that's creating the sadness. It's there.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes those tears are tears of just thankfulness. It's somebody speaking their name still. One of the biggest fears a grieving person has is my person is going to be forgotten.
Mm-hmm.
People are going to stop talking about them. We don't want that. Say the name. Keep showing up. If you're a doer, be a doer. Don't ask the question, let me know if there's something that you need. We don't know, especially in those really early days. We don't know how to help ourselves, let alone ask for help. We don't know what that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing good enough just to maybe wake up that day, take a shower, brush our teeth. And I know that sounds simple, but so many people that sit across from me in a session, that's a genuine struggle, a drive to have basic hygiene. There's not a want to live.
I know.
So patience, kindness.
So when we're coming up to the big ones, okay? Thanksgiving and Christmas, boom, boom, it's back to back. It's family everywhere.
Yeah.
It's gifts. It's Santa coming.
Joy, happiness.
It's church. It's
very in
all
your
the
face.
things. Yeah.
Very in your face.
And so with that coming up, for those who have gone through loss, whatever stage that they're at, and like you and I talked about, sometimes the hardest stage is just showing up at a place like Lost and Found and saying, okay, I can talk about it a little bit or listen to other people talk about it, just getting to that point. So no matter what stage that we're at, or maybe it's been years, or it's someone that's lost a spouse, the holidays. Like, where do we even start with the holidays? Do we start with remembering that person?
Absolutely.
Is that something that, instead of just being like, okay, they're not here, so let's not mention it, is there something healing about hanging that stocking, or talking about how much that Charlie would have loved going on the Santa train with us, or, where do we start there?
Yeah, great. Communication.
Mm-hmm.
Ask your person. Like, if you are the one that's supporting the grieving person, ask them what their needs are in terms of, hey, I know that this has been our family tradition for years. How are you feeling about that? Do you want to hang the stocking?
Very good. Sounds simple, but really important. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Listen to them too. If your loved one is saying, I can't do this tradition this year. Okay.
Okay.
Maybe it doesn't mean that it has to be that way forever, but maybe it's just been 4 to 6 months since the death. They're just not ready. And those are some unrealistic expectations of these people to decorate a house. You're right. It's in your face this time of year. It's very, much, I'm supposed to put on this face. I'm supposed to be happy. I need to be this joyous person. I need to create all of these things. We don't have the capacity. We don't have the mental and emotional ability.
And it's okay for it to look a little bit different.
Absolutely.
Either now, this year, or every year.
That's right. I mean, a simple tip that, we spend a lot of time in preparing our people that are in our groups this time of year.
Yes.
And go to the basics. Write down these traditions. What do you think you have the capacity for? Who can maybe support you in your life to make that happen? And when we're talking about people that have young children still too.
Yeah.
It's really hard because, we want to encourage, we don't want to say, don't put the tree up this year for the sake of those kids, right? That first Christmas, I was numb. I went through the motions, right? I did the tree, but I didn't do everything at the level that I used to. The matching pajamas weren't there. All of these little things that I've done
all the
as a
extra
mom,
things.
I couldn't. We were doing good enough to have a tree in the house and to have gifts under the tree.
And guess what? That's all the kids were looking for anyway. We put a lot of that on ourselves.
Yeah, there's a lot
stuff.
of extra pressures, and I think you need to get to a place of self-forgiveness and to not put yourself in that place of that demand and those expectations. Some of it's self-induced, some of it's family. But, I think planning, preparing, being prepared for what's coming ahead. I can remember being told, have an exit plan. If you think you can do it and you get there and it's too much, have a plan to leave. And then as the support system for that grieving person, just give them some grace. Give them some space. Like let it be what it needs to be this year. Don't be upset with them because they're not performing at the level that you think that they should be at. It's hard. Kindness.
I think breathing is a really big thing whenever you're going into stuff like that too. I know that sounds silly, but it does
not at all.
help your mind.
So we start every group with a mindfulness activity. And so this is a skill set. This is a coping skill that we're giving these individuals. And it can be a simple breathing technique, triangle breathing. Breathing in for so many seconds.
Holding it.
Breathing out.
Yes.
And this is something they can take with them in those moments, right? You're walking into a space that floods you with memories and is very triggering for you. Okay, give me a second. Let me take a couple of deep breaths. Where can I go to recompose myself? Who's my safe people?
Yeah, I think having those safe people, because I think too, Melanie, like just thinking from my own life when I was going through hard times, and then I'm walking into a group of everyone who's in a happy phase, they don't want you there. That's how it feels.
Sure.
You feel like, okay, well, they don't want me here. I am bringing the mood way down with the reality of what's happening in my life.
Yeah. Whether that's spoken or unspoken, you feel it.
I know.
And a lot of times it's unspoken, right? It's our perception of it.
Yeah.
But you feel it. And it's true. You know that. You know you aren't the same person. You know you're shifting and you're changing.
And so how do you do that?
How do you
navigate that?
Yeah.
Do you just say, you know what? I don't have to be here.
That's right. That's it. You have to give yourself permission and not beat yourself up for saying, I can't do this right now.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Okay. We'll circle back with you guys in a few months.
You're not a bad person for that.
Yeah.
Again, I think it's self-induced pressures that we put on ourselves.
Yeah. Well, I think too, okay, how to circle this up. So the way that we're painting it is not very light and bright right now, but the truth of it is the more it seems like that we go through things, the more that God grows us and that we're able to have a capacity for understanding others. And so giving those tools, like what you guys provide at Lost and Found, is number one. If you can get there and get that support, and you've given us some good ways to help those in our life who are going through similar situations. And so moving from there, and then, I think once you start getting those tools and putting one foot in front of the other, whether as the family or as the individual, you do start seeing little bits of joy again, and you're able to take those things in again. And so I think that if you're willing to stay and have another conversation with us, I think we should talk about, how does your life change, and what are the ways that you do grow through these situations and hardships. And a big thanks to Melanie for guiding us through that tough conversation today. I hope it helped you as much as it did me. And next time we will be continuing the conversation from grief to growth and the steps that we can take together to move forward through these hard times. If you are watching us on YouTube, please be sure to like and subscribe so you can be notified when our next episode drops. You can also follow At Home with Emily and Around the Ozarks on all of our social media pages, and head to AroundTheOzarks.com and be sure to sign up for our daily newsletter. We'll see you next time.